Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to the 13th episode of the interview with Professor Frans Rupert. And this is brought to you live from Oslo, Norway. We are here right now conducting the third module of the Advanced International course. Hello Frans.
Hello, Christine.
Thank you for making time.
It's a pleasure for me.
Frans, I understand that you have recently been through some major changes of the terminology being used in your works. Can you share with us more about it and what makes you decide on the change?
Yeah, I'm doing this type of works in 1994, and I started with the family constellation, tradition, and I followed this path very closely with Bert Hellinger over 5 years. And then I made the experience I had to do something to this work. It is trauma, that only looking at relationship is not enough, looking at the system is not enough. And though I've found out learned more about trauma and understood how trauma affects relationships. And then, meanwhile, I realized that it is confusing if you talk about systemic or systemic constellation, and it's more important to focus on the identity. Because as long as we do not have our own identity, we get lost in relationships. Yeah? So we get lost in the systems. So what is needed, what is necessary? Of course we want to have good relationships, we want to live together with other people in a good way, but we only can do it if we have the focus on ourselves. And the focus on ourselves is to develop our own identity and to understand more about how this development of identity is disturbed, can be disturbed. There can be huge obstacles, and especially a whole system, a family system, for example, can do a lot of things against the development of a healthy identity. So I now know that the therapeutic work needs to focus on the development of identity. And this is the reason why I call it now identity-oriented psychotrauma therapy. So this is a shift from looking at relations and looking at the system, looking at the person, the development of the single person, in order to make us available, then to have different relationships that are based on a healthy I, and no longer on those substitute I's or these survival strategies.
Okay. So the theoretical framework used to be multi-generational psychotraumatology, which is the framework, the name of the framework. So now it is changed to identity-oriented psychotherapy? Yeah, psychotrauma therapy. Psychotrauma therapy? Okay. And what about the name of the practice?
To say something about this multi-generational psychotraumatology.
Yeah.
This was for me an attempt to bring two worlds together. The one world was the world of family constellations. The other world was the world of psychotraumatology.
Okay.
And this world of psychotraumatology was more a scientific world. They do research and they have some basis also in universities. And the family constellation work was outside of it. It was something that happened in the population. And though Bert Hellinger is not an academic person, and is more spiritual person, spiritual leader.
More philosophical.
Yeah, philosophical. So I tried in a way. There was an attempt to make a bridge, to build a bridge between those two spheres.
Okay.
But then I learned you are in between whenever you try to. Very often it can happen that you are to fall in between, there's a gap to fall in the gap between. So that means on the one side, those that are working in this family constellation field, they didn't really understand what I'm doing. And they didn't understand that I made a distinction between the method, consolation, and the theory. Yeah? On the other hand, those who are in this more academic field of psychotraumatology, they say, oh no, this is too much spiritual work,
yes,
too
that's
much
right.
esoteric work. So, and though I was in between, and so meanwhile I developed, I think, this type of work I'm doing, and the theory I'm developing, to a degree where I can say it's something that stands for itself. It's an own position. You can also say it's about developing my own identity. And so I now decided to let go multi-generation traumatology and now to name it identity-oriented psychotrauma theory on the one side and the therapy on the other side.
Okay. So IOPT, Identity-Oriented Psychotrauma Theory, would be the name of the theoretical framework, and the practice would be also IOPT, but it's Identity-Oriented Psychotrauma Therapy. And the method?
The method, it's not so easy to find the proper word for that, because constellation is no longer for me appropriate.
I'm so used to constellation.
We are so used, we use it, and it will take time, of course, to get used to new words, but in the moment I see it as a self-encounter. We have the chance, working mostly in group or even in individual sessions, that we make account with ourselves with the help of the sentence, the sentence of the intention. So in the moment, I call it self-encounter with the sentence of the intention. This is what we are doing. We have the chance, looking at the sentence, and picking out the words, and people going into resonance with these words. Then we have a good way to understand what's inside us and what's, in a way, is in the moment, is our identity. And then from this basis on, we can develop it further. We can, by self-encounter, by going into resonance with ourselves, this is the best way to move forward. And it works. It works perfectly.
I'm really glad, also as a practitioner of these works, that you have taken out the word constellation, because it really distinguishes the difference of your works, which you have, dedicated 20 years of your life to research on. So congratulations on the, coming into this level of clarity, even for yourself as the founder of the works. But I feel that right now, it's very timely to also ask you about, how you got started with this work since 20 years ago. And of course, you did share a little bit earlier on about why do you choose psychotrauma. And I also understand that in the beginning when you started sharing your works, there was some risk that you took. Maybe in the area of in the industry and also your career. Can you share with us more on that and what got you through it? How you come against mainstream and
It was about 20 years ago now when I started, and it was of course for personal reason. I was so under pressure in my personal relationship that I really didn't know how to have a relationship, especially with a woman. So I needed help myself. And so I found some help in this family constellation field and did some work for myself, and this helped me to understand more about myself. And so I continued, and I took the risk. I took the risk as an academic.
Because you're still lecturing right now at the university.
And I took the risk to be outside of this academic field and doing this type of work and engaging myself and writing books about. And of course, the reaction was from the academic field: it is not science enough for them.
But not enough research.
Not enough research. But I continued because of the personal development I experienced myself. And of course, I saw it in others. I saw that by this work you can answer questions that science cannot answer. And so I found out that behind all these mental illnesses, like what they call borderline or schizophrenia or whatever, that behind their is a dynamic. It's a relational dynamic. There's a dynamic of trauma, and so for me it was clear. I never go back to a reduced world of research as it is done in the academic world. And what I now see, not going back to the ideologies that you have in the academic world too, and science is not free from ideology. So I can continue this work, and I'm very glad and happy that I didn't give up.
Yes.
And I started now. This 20 years, since 20 years, I know I learned so much by my own research doing this work that I can easily talk with the academic world and say, okay, what is your concept, what is my concept, how do you treat things and how do it, and I'm sure it's a lot of advantage in what I'm doing.
Looking from the practicality of the work.
Yes.
Yeah, it is coming forward with a real practical solution. It's not just a theoretical framework. But you did a fantastic job marrying both. To come up with a very strong theoretical framework, and a lot of therapists who are practicing your works find it so easy with a strong theoretical framework, to do and to support them in these books.
I think this is the advantage that I'm trained as a scientist.
Yes.
I know how to argue.
Yeah.
And how important logic is.
Right.
And that you see the contradictions also in the theory. And so I work on, and I see that without a same basis in theory, you can't have good effects in practice. And so for me it's, in a way, I would say, theory comes first.
Okay.
Then comes practice. But if you have a good way of practicing, then you learn a lot from the practice. And you can bring it back to theory.
That's very good. So thank you, Franz, for your dedication, for your life to develop on IOPT. So now we can call it IOPT already. Identity-oriented psychotrauma therapy, and also identity-oriented psychotrauma theory and therapy. So I'm very excited of the future of this theory, practice and method, and the history it's going to make to humanity. Thank you, Franz, so much for that. Do email me if you want to find out more about Professor Franz Rupert's work and therapy, or subscribe to this channel for future interviews. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.